Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I am recapping episode 5 of Lovecraft Country. There's so much to unpack here, hence why I'm a little bit late on this review. For one thing, honestly, this week I have just been ridiculously tired. I don't know if the uncertainty of whatever fresh hell 2020 is going to bring us from one day to the next is getting to me. The fact that we're in a pandemic, there's economic uncertainty all around. I don't know, but either way, this week I was just extremely exhausted, like in my spirit. You know, like the kind of tired that sleep don't even cure, you just over it. And also because there was so much to unpack in this episode, I just wanted to make sure that I really took my time with it in terms of really sitting with my own feelings about some of the themes that were explored, and we'll get to what those were in a hot second. So this was Ruby's episode, but we have to check in with our three heroes. So at the top of the episode, we have Tick has come to realize that Montrose killed Yahima, and Tick loses his shit, jumps on Montrose, which freaks Leti out because Leti does not want to see Tick in this fit of rage or having this level of violence, which she knows that, you know, it's looking like this is hereditary, you know, some red flags here. So, and also Leti has not caught on to the fact that Yahima is dead. Montrose did not send this person out into the world to just do their thing. Montrose killed this person, and Leti does not catch on to that until Tick makes it very, very clear for her at the end. And this scares Leti. And what I really like is that Tick and Leti both come from places where they don't have a reference point for what healthy relationship dynamics look like. They don't have a reference for what healthy love looks like, but they are trying to love each other because they know that there's something there. And Tick has tried to run away several times, and this whole adventure of this magic and trying to figure out what the hell is going on is what's tying him to staying in Chicago. But that fear of abandonment is also a thing for Leti because of her relationship with her mom. So you see how this history of violence, once again, from Montrose being abused by his father for being gay, and then Montrose abusing Tick because he was abused, because he doesn't know how to properly love or communicate. And then a part of it is he wants to protect Tick from whatever this is that he's messing around with. And I like the fact that Tick recognized, my dad thinks that he is protecting me, you know, and he makes that clear to Leti. And I really thought that I love the conversation that they both had with each other when Leti was in the bathtub, where Leti was saying, you know, love seemed like a very throwaway thing or something that you just tossed around, you know, per her mom, having different men going in and out of her life. And Tick was like, you know, his parents' love was enduring but unknowable. I think that is a very well-written way to express what probably a lot of previous generations of Black people, what they knew their grandparents or their parents' relationships to be. I can speak to, you know, my grandparents. I'm sure they loved each other, but I didn't see them be lovey-dovey with one another. But they were together for, I don't know, 50, 60 years, I'm not sure, you know, so enduring but unlovable. And that doesn't give their children and their children and their children an idea or a blueprint of what a healthy, loving relationship looks like. And then for Montrose, you know, back during that time, the way that he loved was deemed to be unacceptable. So how could he teach Tick how to properly love? You know, the most we got was the conversation they were having in the water in the cave in the previous episode. So the other thing that I really liked was this moment of vulnerability where Tick says to Leti, please don't be scared of me. I don't know why I thought that was so special. And they even mentioned that on the podcast. And I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. There was something to that. I just thought that it was a moment of just honesty where, in my experience, when you call people out, particularly men, about doing something that's emotionally hurtful or something that you have questions about, they tend to double down on the action and want to explain it away or gaslight you. So the fact that he said, like, please don't be scared of me, you know, I thought that that was a really beautiful moment of vulnerability. And child, that was a sex scene. Hello. Whoever was the intimacy coach, stellar job. The way that they handle Black sex in this show, I think it's so beautiful, which also segues me into Montrose, who they mentioned on the podcast, Lovecraft Country Radio, highly recommend, the official podcast for this show. They mentioned that at this point, Montrose has nothing to lose. His wife is gone. His brother is gone. It looks like he and Tick's relationship may be permanently damaged. Because you notice Montrose wasn't even fighting back. He really just let Tick get it off. And he shows up at Sammy's house, battered and bruised, you know, one eye swollen closed. And it looks like Sammy is preparing for this drag night, which there were cameos from Shangela and I want to say Monet Exchange from Drag Race. I was really happy about those cameos, but also it looked like Montrose was free. Even though that freedom came at the cost of his relationship with his son and, you know, not having to prove anything to his brother, it looks like now Montrose is free to have the love that his father tried to beat out of him. And a part of me is really happy for him. And I don't know if that was a drag show or a cabaret. I don't know what they would technically call it, but I can tell you that there is something really magical about going to a drag show. I am a hetero cis woman, and I'm telling you, one of the things that I missed the most about my early 20s being in Atlanta was going to the drag shows. I am a person who most of my life I did not feel like I belonged in the social circles that I was in. I always just kind of felt weird or like this don't bother nobody else, you know. And as I got older, I came to understand that a part of that was that I was just, the feminism was just in me and I didn't know what that was. You know, I just constantly felt uncomfortable with the ways of the world and no one else seemed to be uncomfortable with them, and I just did not always feel like I belonged. But when I went to the drag shows, for some reason, it's a sense of belonging. I don't know what it is because I don't do drag, although I would like to. I'm not gay. I'm not trans. I don't know why I felt so safe and comfortable there. It was just, it's like a spiritual experience. I don't know. I just loved it and I miss it. And shouts out to all those ladies. I hope they're doing well. But it looks like, you know, Montrose is very apprehensive at first, kind of staying in the background. And then they do this thing that I call it like a baptism by glitter, because they just like elevated him and there was just all this glitter falling on him. I just thought that it was so beautiful. And then he starts dancing and he finally kisses Sammy. And of course, this is after he and Sammy had this sex scene with Frank Ocean's Bad Religion playing. And there was something about just seeing Montrose's dark-skinned hand on Sammy's light-skinned hand. It was just a very beautifully shot scene and it didn't feel gratuitous. I enjoyed it. I don't know. I liked it. I liked the way they handled that scene, but this was our first time seeing Montrose really happy. Aside from when he did the leap to get into the cave and, you know, was like, Jesse, I wasn't got shit on me, but he seemed like he got a release at this cabaret and he, you know, kissed Sammy in front of all these people. And I honestly hope that he gets to keep that and hold on to it, because this is still the 50s and you can't just be gay. You can't even just be black. So to be black and gay and a man, it's not like you can navigate the world safely. I just hope that he gets to hold on to that joy and that freedom for a bit long. I don't want to see that snuffed out. And let's just pull over right here. There has been some conversations on Twitter by indigenous peoples criticizing the way the show handled Yahima. And in my previous video, I thought it was really beautiful that they brought up the concept of two-spirit, but of two-spirit people. And this person on Twitter, whose name I'm not going to mention because we don't need to do that. It's easy to find. Google is accessible to you all if you're here. That the term wasn't properly used, that this was another blow to the representation of indigenous people. And I'm going to be honest, my first reaction to that was one of defensiveness, because I feel like this show centers Blackness, and the Black violence that we see is historical in context, but it's not gratuitous. But I think that we have also become a bit numb to seeing violence against Black bodies. And I also kind of felt like, well, this is a sci-fi show. It's a horror show. Is there not any leniency for historical accuracy? Like, in a fictionalized show, does everything have to be spot on accurate? You know, like, this isn't a historical context. It's sci-fi. But I also had to think, as a Black person who we have seen our stories in predominantly Black movies and television shows, we've seen our cultures really bastardized. One of the key examples, there's an episode of Sex and the City where Samantha dates a Black man. It's one of the worst things I have ever seen in my fucking life. I want everyone who has something to do with that episode to call me and explain to me the ways in which they failed themselves and this country. It was shit. And I have seen so many instances of shows from that era where it's not autobiographical, obviously, you know, but y'all can do better than this. So as a Black person who I'm very sensitive to the way Black culture is handled by people who aren't Black, I recognize that we do need to be sensitive to other marginalized groups, and we can't claim the monopoly on misrepresentation or no representation. We don't see indigenous people represented hardly ever. So what I'm hoping, because the show isn't done, I'm hoping that they go back and fix that later on. I'm hoping that since we didn't see a body, maybe Yahima isn't gone. I'm hoping that moving forward, if people make the choice to put indigenous characters in a film or a TV show, that you at least have an indigenous person in the room to speak to the accuracy. Get a consultant just to make sure that you're handling a culture that most people don't know about, that isn't a monolith. I'm hoping that moving forward, that's something that Black creatives take into consideration. We don't want to be the way that white people have been to us, where it's just, it's just Black people, just, you know, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, I did think that some of Yahima's monologue in that previous episode was speaking to the struggle of indigenous people and how these people came and colonized them and asked them for their help and then basically murdered them. I think that that's important, but apparently that wasn't enough. And I think that it's a fair critique, and I hope that it's one that Black creatives take moving forward, because we don't want to be those people. We've had enough people shit on our culture, our identities, in fictionalized narratives, and instead of just saying, damn, we messed up, this is what we will do better, and actually do that moving better, you know, we get gaslit, we get told it's not a big deal. So I don't want to do that to indigenous people or any other marginalized groups. I think that we need to be better. So that's my soapbox. That's all I have to say about that. We also, at the end of the episode, see this conversation between Tick and Leti, where Leti feels like these are the tools of the devil and we don't need to fool with this. So once again, we're being confronted with this idea of the master's tools. Are they inherently evil, or is it contingent upon the intention of the user? I think that we can maybe look at this in terms of gun violence. Me as a Black person, if all these white people have access to guns, I don't want to be unarmed, and we see how unhinged these fuckers are out here. You know, that could be considered a tool of the devil. But if it's me or you, I don't trust you to have it. So I don't trust you to decide what's going to happen with it, because we see what y'all do to black people when you have tools. So shit, we need some of our own. So I can understand where Tick is coming from, where he's like, no, we need to learn this shit so we can protect ourselves. But Leti feels like maybe learning this is the evil, and look at what your dad did in order to protect you. I don't want to be a murderer. You know, even though, Leti, let's be clear, you did take a bitch out. But moving right along. So Ruby wakes up in Christine Williams' house in the body of the white woman who we thought Leti killed. Did she kill her, or did she just stun her and knock her the fuck out? We don't know. Anyway, and she's terrified. She's stumbling about in the street, and she's in a black neighborhood, and all these black people are just trying to help her, like, bitches, you okay? And the scene where this young black boy tries to help her, and the police pull up, and in her mind, because, you know, she's still her, she puts her hands up too, and they attack this young black boy who was trying to help her. That was very, very upsetting to watch. People were trying to help her as opposed to reprimand her or be afraid of her. But then, yes, she is white, but she is also a woman. And back during those times, women only very recently have had control over their health care. There was a time where if your husband just felt like you weren't happy enough, he could send you out to a mental institution and get you a lobotomy, and you would basically be a robot. That is a thing that happened. That's a video for another day, because that's also kind of how the vibrator got invented, but we'll get into that another time. Y'all drop down in the comments, let me know if y'all want a video on that. Feminism. So these white police officers aren't listening to her as she's like, something isn't right, whatever. They're like, yes, madam, your husband will take care of everything. So she gets back to Christine Williams' house, and William gives her the option, like, look, here's this potion and here's a stack of money. You can do whatever you want to do. If you choose to be this white woman, I am going to require a favor, but you do you. And so he leaves the house. This was really upsetting for me, because I did not want Ruby to choose to be a white woman. This is what I had to sit with, because I think that for a while I have seen black women accused of wanting to be white when we relax our hair, when we dye our hair, if we wear weaves, if we do this, if we do that, oh, you just want to be white. And I have always taken offense to that. I have never ever in my life wanted to be anything other than a black woman, but I was also born in '87. I didn't have to grow up in not in legalized segregation. We chose to segregate ourselves in Atlanta, but or did we? Another video for another day. So to see this black woman make this choice to be a white woman was really hard for me. And I think everyone wants to believe that they would not make that choice. But what I also had to consider is things were a lot more life and death back then than they were now. And I was thinking about this, some documentary I was watching a really long time ago, where biracial people way back when could pass, like Lena Horne and before, like they could pass as white. And I will always ask myself, were those people wrong if they took advantage of the ability to pass? And that's something that I never expected to be able to explore, which was explored in this episode. So Ruby goes to Marshall Fields. She applies for this job again. She gets hired with very little effort, not as a saleswoman, but as an assistant manager. And one of the first things that she did was to lord that power over Tamara, the black girl who got the sales associate job over her, who doesn't seem to be doing too well, or like customers are waiting for a really long time. But I think that it's also that the sales associates are setting her up for failure as well. And Ruby is privy to these conversations about, hiring this black woman caused some issues. Is it going to be a problem for you? And then the way that these white sales associates were talking about Tamara, and it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch her make a choice to be a part of that. Um, Sorry, y'all know I have my notes because I really try to be as accurate as I can about this. I think that in Ruby's mind, she's protecting Tamara from what these white people are saying about her, but it's like you're also creating a hostile work environment because you found out that this woman wasn't nearly as qualified as you were, and yet she got this job and you feel like she would do this job so much better. So that was incredibly disappointing because it's like, so you gonna be just as bad as the rest of them. And they end up making this decision to go on the south side because, you know, white women want to have a safari adventure. A part of me was hoping that Ruby was also gonna find some kind of way to jack up these white women for being trash and being annoying and just awful people. That didn't happen, but maybe later, we'll see. So she finally figures out what the price for this temporary freedom is, which is that she has to work as a maid, as a server, at some sort of function that they are having at the lodge that the captain is having. And as a black woman, no one even notices her. She just blends into the background. She's handing out these deviled eggs. These people don't say thank you. They don't look her in the face. Now that I think about it, I have experienced that a bit myself, but again, another video for another day. As a service worker, she just blends in. Very different from what her experience was as a white woman, where she got to kind of own the femininity of being a woman, and there was this safety in this covering of also being white and this privilege of things being given to you. Stark contrast to how she was treated as a maid. And Christina basically uses her relationship, Ruby's relationship with William, to coerce her into putting this little object with a symbol on it in the captain's office. And Ruby finds herself in a closet with a zombie. What is the purpose of the zombie? Do they reanimate dead people to get them to confess? Is that like how this captain is getting ahead? Either way, both the captain and Christina want this orrery because it holds some sort of ability for them to both, I guess, become legitimate members of the lodge. And what we also find out is that William was the rightful heir to the lodge, but he was killed by the captain, and Christina saved him, and which is why she's going in and out of his body and whatever. Who the hell was William before he died? If he's the rightful heir, was it her brother? Like, I have so many questions. I can't wait to see how that gets revealed, because I'm like, girl, who the hell was William? I also really appreciated that Ruby sees Tamara get sexually assaulted by the white store manager while they are on the south side of Chicago on their little adventure, you know, seeing how black people live, I guess, fucking losers. And this changes something in her. So when she gets back to William Christina's house, she has, you know, questions, and Christina tries to connect with her about her struggle. And I was so happy that she told her to shut the fuck up, because that's what I feel that I often have to say to white feminists who try so hard to tangentially relate their struggles as women to our struggles as black women, and it's just not the same. And what it led to was this question of, who are you uninterrupted? I think that we got to see who Montrose was uninterrupted. We got to see who Ruby was uninterrupted, which is a femdom who gave this white man his issue while Cardi B was playing. I thought it was a very powerful scene. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, damn, maybe I have a future as a dominatrix. But I think that Christina's, who she is uninterrupted, is white man. I think that she just, you know, if she, or at least maybe she just wants the freedom of being a white man. And I think that we all need to ask ourselves, if we were uninterrupted, if, you know, all these social constructs weren't a thing, who and what would we be uninterrupted by who and what society tells us that we can and cannot be, what we can and cannot do? I thought that was a really profound question. And then also, it's finally revealed that Christina and William are the same person. You know, Christina's taking this potion so that she can go in and out of William's body, which leads to a bunch of other questions. You know, did her dad know? What the hell is up with that? I had a few other questions. The skin. All this dead skin sloshing off of her. Was no one stumbling across this skin in the street and being like, this looks like the skin of a white person? What the hell happened? It makes me think about Coming to America, when it was like, who gonna clean up all these roses? Who gonna clean up all this skin and this blood? What the hell? I also want to know why the Captain Lancaster seemed to have a black torso. It was like a Dr. Frankenstein type shit happening. His torso was like very much that of a person of color or a black person. Like, what the hell going on there? When William was pulling Ruby's body out of that woman, there was this TV like news segment about locusts taking over a part of Africa. Does that symbolize something? Did anybody else pick up on that? Let me know in the comments if you picked up on what that was supposed to be about. I know William was saying something about a butterfly and whatever, and they were saying something about the locust, and what was that? What is in the basement? That's Ruby's question. Like, what y'all keeping in the basement? She asked Christina and William, like, what y'all doing? I have questions. So those are my questions that are up in the air for me. I'm really excited for the next episode where we get to see what the hell happened with Tick in Korea. I think in a previous video I said Vietnam. My bad, y'all. Not a history buff. I wasn't thinking. Sorry. But that should have just been common sense. Like, bitch, Vietnam's in the 60s. Anyway, sorry. I'm really excited to see what the hell happened to him over there because they keep kind of alluding to it. Seems like he has some PTSD. I'm very excited. I loved this episode. It gave us a lot to think about and to unpack. I'm sorry I'm late. Drop down in the comments. Let me know what you guys thought. Anything that I missed. Any theories that you have working. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.